Well, as I led off the top of the show, we talked about the various different spending state by state on drought, and we'll get to that with my panel in just a moment. But also in news today, Scott Morrison and Christian Porter have released a second and final draft of the religious discrimination legislation. Now, it'll come back into the Parliament in February. But the second exposure draft includes several key changes after months of negotiations and consultations with religious groups, aged care providers and LGBTI rights advocates. Most notably, according to the draft, an employee cannot be reprimanded for expressing views based on their faith unless damage can be proven, likely a reaction to the recent legal dispute between Rugby Australia and Israel Folau. Joining me now to discuss this and everything else, Sky News host Chris Smith and 2GB's broadcaster Luke Grant. Great to have you both on the show.
Hey, Peter.
I haven't seen you in a while, Luke Grant, but I listen to your dulcet tones all the time. I want to start just quickly. We won't go into a long discussion about drought, but I thought it was remarkable when you see those statistics state by state. If a farmer meets all the eligibility criteria, $224,000 of support. But if you're in a state, it depends on what state you're in as to how much you get. And look, you've got to look at Tasmania. If it's a drought in Tasmania, $7,500. Queensland, not even $40,000, just on the cusp of $40,000, $129,000. New South Wales, $69,000. SA nothing, WA nothing. What do you make of that, Chris Smith?
Well, it's all gobbledygook because the farmers must look at this stuff and think to themselves, are you serious? Have we got a plan in place? We obviously don't. And I noticed that David Littleproud today was forcing the states to say, get your act together. Look, this is the same kind of blame game we've been having with health for decades. Whereas, oh, that's not our jurisdiction, that's the state government. Well, we don't do that, we only supply the money, etc., etc. The way to get around all of this and the inequitable amounts of money you have just pointed out is simple. You get a leadership, the federal government needs to lead, get the states in and say, this is how we handle ourselves in a drought. You can categorise the drought if you want, you can categorise people's needs and just say that's the kind of money you will get irrespective of whether you're in Launceston or Darwin. It shouldn't matter. It's inequitable and farmers must shake their heads and say, we aren't being properly led in this country.
Yeah, look, you're spot on. And look, I think the government, the federal government, should bring the states in at COAG and say, here is the floor amount that everyone will get, regardless of where they live, and we'll start taking it out of your health payments or your education payments or all the other things that the Constitution says as states you should be funding by yourself. But inevitably, Canberra keeps tipping in because the first thing you do when you're in trouble at a state government level is bitch and moan about the Commonwealth and demand extra resources.
Peter, I agree completely. Actually, I spoke to David Littleproud this afternoon. The other thing that I thought he brought to the table, and I know this is kind of a little airy-fairy and doesn't get down to the specifics, but he made the point we've got to be more can-do about this. Now, I know that reeks of Campbell Newman.
Let's start with him, mate. Let's start with him.
Exactly. So I said to him, you know, they're great words. Let's see now this translate into action. He made a couple of comments earlier in the day about South Australia and how they were dragging the chain. The South Australian government responded with some good news today. But, I mean, this is really the issue that Australians gather around. We had that horrible incident the other day of some half-wits who were sending terrible letters to farmers in New South Wales that are affected by drought. And I couldn't believe the reaction on the talkback line. Well, I could, because I know this is so dear to everyone. We've got to be able to get this right, and we've got to learn from it. So to get through this and say, oh, wow, we've escaped that one, you beauty is not good enough. We've got to be better at harvesting water. You talk about that all the time, and it's true. But Littleproud today, when I spoke to him, he had a change of attitude. I like Chris. I hate this blame game. It's stupid. It achieves nothing. But, God, get into the room. Let's find a way to do it. Let's fix it. There's nothing we can't do. There's everything we can do. Get the thing done. Not hard.
I have to say, Sydney-siders, I'm down here in Melbourne, and of course, and I don't have the problems with the air quality.
Oh.
But the number of people listening to radio, I've been listening to people on radio and listening to or reading what they're saying online, complaining about the poor air quality. Now, yes, it's tough. I'm sure I was there last week when it wasn't great either. But we've only got the bad air quality. We haven't got the fires. Spare a thought for the people with the fires. It's like we talk about the drought and then you get in the cab and everyone's whinging about the rain. I'll never whinge about rain, even if I don't want it in my garden, because somewhere someone does want it, and I hope they get it. You know, if we just turn into a whole nation of whingers, Chris.
Yes, we actually have. It's funny, you know, if it's really hot, we say this weather, it's so hot. And then when it starts to rain, we say, I wish it had stopped raining. And the same thing with the smoke. Every person I ran into today was saying, how bad's this smoke? And I thought, yeah, it's bad, but what are you going to do about it?
We haven't got the fires.
No.
We haven't got the fires, and we're not fighting the fires in the smoke anyway.
Yeah.
We're at home in our safety of Sydney.
Yeah. But you know what's worse than the whinging is the people that take what's happening with the fires and say, look at this, we can't export coal, we can't do this, we can't do that. I think the use of this for political advantage by one group in particular is appalling, absolutely appalling. It should be called out more often than it is. Boy, oh boy, I think it's just low-grade behaviour to say, oh, look, you know, ScoMo's lighting fires around the place. And how often does it happen? Peter and Chris will know this too. You get a media release from the police saying someone's been arrested. The allegation is they started a fire. Whoa,
well,
hang on.
Correct. Between lightning strikes and arsonists, there's the vast majority of Australian fires. Chris Smith, I do listen with interest to all the you know, complaint about coal and all the politicking from the Greens. How do you reckon we'd go at the moment if we had to have electric fire trucks?
Electric fire trucks.
That's where they want us to go.
There you go.
They pluck these things from obscurity, these clowns. Like, they shouldn't have a say, but of course it's all part of the democratic system. Except the problem with the Greens is they've lost the plot. They seriously have lost the plot, and they're being very disrespectful for those who are fighting fires, protecting their property, protecting their own lives, and those, you know, previously in floods who were doing similar things. Don't go the alarmist route. Stop scaring the bejesus out of people. This is life and death, and we've had this on our planet, and particularly in Australia, since our grandfathers and our great-grandfathers ran the land. That's how it is, and that's how it always will be.
Hey, just a bit of concerning news. Remember that whole debate about My Health Record? Well, the bloke that was implementing it in Australia, he came from a fraught rollout in the UK. We hired him, God knows why. Well, he's quit. It didn't last very long, only a couple of months. Interestingly, there's been money spent on legal advice connected to a workplace dispute. In all of that, I'm interested. Luke Grant, Chris Smith, did you sign up to My Health Record, or I think you had to opt out? You in, Luke?
I'm in.
I'm out. I wanted to see
out?
and give it 2 years until it worked or it didn't work. And I'm so glad I did with that news, let me tell you.
You are, Chris Smith, you are a smart man. I've seen the back end of government processes too.
What does that make
I'm
me,
out.
Peter?
Well, you're trusting.
That's what I am.
You're trusting.
Good
there
to
you
see
go.
you.
Santa will reward you. Luke
Thank
Grant,
you.
Chris Smith, thanks for your time tonight.